Erev Shabbos, I wanted to make a video in support of a dear friend of mine who's helped me out a lot over the years, and is a very choshevinger man, titofasach for Yiddishkeit. He accomplishes very great things for Torah, for Judaism. Halacha Rabbi Asher Meza, soll das sein. Excuse me. I'm shocked to see the reactions that people have about him. It reminds me very much of the reactions that mentally ill people have about Donald Trump. They can't point to one thing that he did that's bad. He's done only wonderful good things for the country, but people just hate him for no reason. Sinas chinam. And so too, we see many people just have plain sinas chinam for Asher Meza, who never heard a fight. He's been accused of horrible things, but I'm saying since he's a Yid, he didn't hurt a fly. Asher Meza, that's only a Geras Kakats and Schneider dummy. I'm not talking about George Meza, I'm talking about Asher Meza. Never heard a fly as a Voidly Yid. He's a fine person. I don't understand why people hate him so much. And I think most of the people who hate him never met him. They don't know him. It's very hurtful, very sad to see. And I would like anyone to just tell me what reason I have to hate him. It's a mitzvah of V'yavtem es Ger. It's a mitzvah of Ahavas Yisrael. It's a ver lo'isenu es Ger. So you're playing with fire, first of all, to hate him. You want to be madrich him. You want to try to, if you feel something is wrong that he's doing, you want to give him hadracha in a loving way. That's a voy lazach. But you got to figure out, well, what are you doing? Why? What is he doing that's so bad? What is he doing that's keneged divrei Chazal? And I think really the main reason, and there are other people who have very similar views to him in Halacha and so forth. He's not alone, but there isn't the hatred for them that there is for him. But I think really the reason why people are not soivel him is because he has the guts to stand up against those two big cults that are destroying the Jewish people, that attach themselves to the idea of a falsha geula, one in one way and one in a different way. And he has the courage to stand up against these very powerful groups. And that's why people hate him, I think, because, he says he wants to make ger. He wants to be, show me, where is there an isser? Something we don't do. Alright, fine. To be makar of ger. Fine. So we don't do it, but say anywhere that is mamish aser, say anywhere in Shulchan Aruch. Meyer Shiva, soll gesund sein. Moshe Lazarus, Shlita, Big Dayan. He says that the whole Noahide movement is ridiculous. If someone believes in Torah, they should become a ger. It's the same thing Rosh is saying. It's probably more extreme than Rosh is saying, because Rosh at least is saying, B'di'evid, it's okay to be a Bet Noach, but it's better to be a ger. And Rabbi Lazarus, he says, really, there's no tachlis in the B'nai Noach movement. But again, this is the brainwashing from Chabad, from the group that calls himself Chabad. I don't mean choshevinger light like the Malachim, Erliche Hasidish Yidden, who are Hasidim of the Balatanya. I don't mean like that. I mean the 770 cult. That this they have this whole idea the Rebbe is the Nasi Adair. It's one thing if you that's your Rebbe, and everyone has their own Rebbe, and you don't have to, and he's an equal among peers, a Rebbe like all other Rebbes. You want to go to him as a Rebbe, fine, but to make him Nasi the Rebbe is Nasi Adair. Forget about Mashiach. Mashiach is a Halbitzor. The whole concept of Nasi Adair without a Sanhedrin is Shtus and Babolin. And the arrogance that they have with this concept. One thing that he's a Nasi Chabad, that's fine. You want to say that's fine. But he's Nasi Adar, that somehow he has a bailus and a chashivas over all other abonim. There's no such concept. There's no such concept in Yiddishkeit without a Sanhedrin. Only with the Sanhedrin do you have a Nasi. And now we don't have a Sanhedrin. We don't have a unified Klal Yisrael. And we won't have a unified Klal Yisrael until Mashiach comes. And that's okay, because we are unified enough that we don't need to be totally unified. We can have a congregationalist polity as long as we have unity and adherence to the words of Chazal and to the Piskei Halacha of the Sanhedrin. That's what the whole Klal Yisrael is required to do, and then the Yud Beis Shiftei Kol, each Shevet can have their own derech. So the Ashkenazim don't eat kidneys, Sephardim eat kidneys. Nothing wrong with that. The main Ikar Din is like the Sephardim. The actual halacha is like the Sephardim. Even if someone really born an Ashkenazi, they could eat kidneys. Really, there's no reason al pi halacha not to. But it's a minhag. And L'maisa, our minhag is to be very, very machmir with kidneys, but al pi halacha, there's absolutely no reason to, even for Ashkenazim, to be as machmir as we are. It's fine if we want to be, just like we do with gebroks and other things. And there's the ikar adin, and there's what we do. And you can't fargin someone else because they don't keep a minhag. You can't have a tain on someone because they eat gebroks or they eat kidneys. Or certainly, even by Ashkenazim, many of the Litvish poskim said you could eat kidneys that's in the tzur of a matzah. We don't do it. The Litvish poskim said you could eat a derivative of kidneys. We don't do it. But does that mean that someone who does it is chutz l'machana? No. They are 100% kosher. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And then there's no reason to look down on someone, even someone who's born Ashkenazi, even though someone's daven Ashkenaz, and they eat kidneys, there's no reason to look down on them. They have what to be soymech on. There's much more reason not to eat kidneys. There's much more reason to be matter kidneys than not to be. But we don't do it, and I don't believe we should be doing it. I personally don't eat kidneys, but I believe that someone who does eat kidneys is doing nothing wrong. And if I'm dealing with someone who's like not frum and they're like struggling with Pesach, of course they should eat kidneys. Like, it's the stupidest thing. Like, it doesn't even make sense to even question that. This is al-Bazach, and almost everything that Asher says is the Ikar Adin. I have not found anything yet that is not the Ikar Adin that he's taught when it comes in Yanim of Kabbalah. So these are the main two issues people tend to have with Asher. One is the Gerus, which there's no Makor to not help people. Adarabba, the Makor, the Shulchan Aruch says you're supposed to, when you see someone is sincere, you're supposed to try to help them become a ger, because they might go back to their tiflis, to their stupidity of a desara. Meaning that it's our goal as Jews. If someone wants to be a ger, we should be rooting for them. Learn Shulchan Aruch. Learn. It's a fascinating thing when it comes to Hilchas Gers. It's one of the few sugyas in Halacha that it's almost verbatim from the main sugya in the Gemara and Yavamas, to the Rambam, to the Shulchan Aruch. There's only a few slight things that are different. But all three of them say that when you see someone wants to be a ger, you're not supposed to push them away too much. You're only supposed to let them know what they're getting into. They have to be aware, and a maker didn't, even if they weren't made aware that the ger is still chal. But they have to make them aware. It's the choiv on the bezdin to make them aware. Until now, if you ate chaylev, you weren't chayiv kares, and now if you do, you would be. Till now, if you ate chazer, you wouldn't be chayiv malchus, and now you would be. Until now, if you were mechal Shabbos, you wouldn't be chayiv misa, and now you would be. This is what we have to explain to the ger, and then, but it says you don't talk too much about the negative stuff. You have to focus more on the positive, because we're afraid that maybe if we're too negative, he's going to give it up. And we're not supposed to try to convince him to give it up. We're only supposed to try to convince him to understand what he's getting into, so he shouldn't go, jump in blind. He should know. But he should understand that it's much more greater. I'm sorry, my English, I don't know, I'm very tired right now, so my English isn't as good as it usually is. But it's much better to be a Yid than not to be. This is the Halacha, this is Shulchan Aruch, this is the Rambam, this is the Gemara. And the shtusim and avolim that people make it into, we have to learn for 3 years, and you gotta live within walking distance to the shul. You don't have to. Is it better? Yeah. You should, but learning for 3 years, it's a big shaila. If a guy is allowed to learn Torah, there are different opinions. Yes, no. We make her a din. You really shouldn't, but there's a reason we have a minute to do so. But it doesn't have to be 3 years. 6 months is usually enough. If someone's walking the walk for 6 months, usually they can make the decision on their own. Is this the lifestyle they want or not? And the thing is, me'ikar adin, even if they're not really from, the ger is chal. They're no different than a Jew who's not from. Which, all right, maybe you don't count a Jew who's not from for a minyan. A born Jew who's not from, there's a question: do you count for a minyan? Don't you count? Would also see maker then that you don't, but we tend to be a little bit liberal about these things, and there were poskim who had different approaches. To me, the one that makes the most sense is Chacham Avadia, who his from the liberal approaches to accepting non-from Jews, as he says, if someone is moided to Kedusha Shabbos, he says Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh Shabbos. He even answers Amen to Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh Shabbos. He is begeder Shemer Shabbos, because Shmira Aviv Shamar Sadavar, you could say, meaning that the fact that he loves Shabbos, he cares about Shabbos, he recognizes the holiness of Shabbos. That's enough. You could have a din of a Shemer Shabbos according to Chacham Avadia. Rabbi Moshe has a different approach. He says that the Apikoris could count for a minyan, because when it comes to the mitzvah of martyrdom, of Kiddush Hashem Barabim, when Ikdash B'Seich B'nai Yisrael, that you have to have a minyan of Yidden to have the law of the public martyrdom then it doesn't matter if the Eid is he could be a total apikoros, and he could still count for the minyan. And so Rabbi Moshe says the same thing as for a minyan for davening to say any davar shebekadusha, but he says that tefillah b'tzibur you don't have, but everything else you could daven, you could lane, you could say shots, all these things you could say. You just don't have this chus of tefillah b'tzibur, whatever that means. It's a little bit strange the way Rabbi Moshe says it. I mean, the question is the person davening? If the person's davening, he's not an apikoros, and I didn't see. I heard there's also tshuva from Rabbi Asher. He says you can assume that a person when he walks into shul that he's done tshuva. Like almanashni tzadik gomer, that type of it's a halacha. If someone he says that he wants to marry a woman on the condition that he's a perfect tzaddik, and they said that the kedushin is chal because shemer b'tshuva, then maybe he thought of tshuva at the moment, and so based on that the kedushin is chal, the marriage is affected. And then you could say it's a perfect saying because maybe he repented in his mind for a minute, and so in the shul, if someone walks in the shul, you could assume mistama they did tshuva, meaning and so we had someone in our shul. He was saying, he openly says he's an atheist, and then he came to shul and we let him daven for the Amid, and it was people who usually fight with us over can we let this one or that one daven for the even count for minyan. And this they were saying, you should daven for the Amid, they want to be makarev and whatever. It's someone who grew up from, and he because he's saying Baruch Atah Hashem Dvarim Shebelevim Dvarim. It's a halacha. Words in the heart are not words. If he's saying Baruch Atah Hashem, it means he believes in God. That's just a halacha. It would seem, all right, the chilukei deis, and it depends what kind of crowd you have. You have to have chochma, you have to have seichel, how you deal with these type of questions. But maker adin, you could be mekel, and there's and the ways of halacha. You have to understand what is halacha. Halacha means movement. It means going. You have to know walking. You have to know how to walk the walk. And that's what halacha is about. You have to be flexible. You have to be able to move within the realms of halacha. Doesn't mean you can do whatever you want, but within the realms of halacha, there's seichel on how things are applied, what, when, and where. But from the halacha, this is how you're supposed to be mekabel gerim. You're supposed to encourage people to be gerim. You're supposed to there's nowhere in Shulchan Aruch does it mention the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. The Rambam. Why is it the Rambam and Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach in Hilchos Malachim and not in Hilchos Yisrei Biyah? Why? Because Hilchos Malachim, it doesn't apply B'zman Hazeh, and it's not in Shulchan Aruch because Hilchos Malachim doesn't apply B'zman Hazeh, and so it applies when we have a Melech, and we don't have Hilchos Malachim today. It doesn't apply today. We're in Golus. Even with the state of Israel, we're in Golus. Even with Lubavitcher Rebbe, we're in Golus. Both are just as stupid, false geulas. To think that this is somehow Leibdach Mashiach Zeiten. Rav Soloveitchik, who was the head of the religious Zionists in America, said that the Medina Israel has nothing to do. It's not the Schalta Gula. It's not the Schalta had Gulunit mit Mashiach. It has nothing to do with Mashiach. allegiance to the state of Israel was patriotic. It wasn't a religious devotion. That was Rav Soloveitchik. Darf sein aggressor Tzioni like than Rav Soloveitchik? No. And I'm not saying an insult as Gevein the Talmud Chacham. And a Voile Yida. I remember Moshe Weinberger said he was a tzaddik with Ruach HaKodesh. Who am I to argue with him? I never met him. Rabbi Weinberger learned it in Shir. My other Rosh Yeshiva, they were telling me of his. I don't forget him to be. I mean, look, this is what he taught. So the whole Indian of telling people to be Bisman is that we're not makabel the ger toshav, we're only makabel the ger tzedek. That's the only type of ger we can be makabel Bisman is that, because it's the whole idea of b'nei noach of ger toshav. That's almost like how the Muslims have a dhimmi. The Muslims go around telling people, you should really think about becoming a dhimmi, or they say no, you should really think about becoming a Muslim. So why should we go and tell people, it's better, you should be a second-class citizen? Yeah, you could become a Jew, but no, what kind of nonsense is that? Why? And I'm not saying Gentiles are second-class citizens. I'm saying spiritually speaking, because Judaism is a religion and not a nationality or a race. When we have Hilchos Malachim, that's talking when we have a national system, which we don't have today. It doesn't apply today. We're in Golus, we're not allowed to operate according to Hilchos Malachim. But even under Hilchos Malachim, all the Rambam is saying is that when we have the Malchus, we have to force everyone to accept the yoke of heaven, to accept monotheism, ethical monotheism. And we don't force them to become a Ger Tzedek if they don't want to be. If they don't want to be a Ger Tzedek, they can live like this. They can have the Shem Mitzvah B'nai Noach. It's fine. It's good enough. But it's not the best. It's not the ideal. It's not like, when I was younger, I used to think, oh, look, the B'nai Noach, they're so lucky. They only have to keep 7 mitzvahs. And look, I'm stuck with all these extra mitzvahs. Do you realize what a stupid way that is to think and there are many, many Frum Yidden who think like this, who are like, oh, if only I was a goy, I could go eat whatever I want, I didn't have to keep Shabbos, I won't have to. And there are people with Steinlach, with Plachika Hitten, with it. Not that many people, but there, and certainly from the Modern Orthodox. It's a very common hashkafa to say, oh, halavai, well, a bruch, I was born to eat. Like they think it's like this negative thing, and they're like, why on earth would anybody want to do this? Are you crazy? And yet they're just like, they're stuck with this because they know it's the truth, but they're like, oh, I wish it would. And like, are you serious? Like, every Jew should think about this, like I spoke about the video with the Pisetzner, where he said, when he turned 40 years old, he wrote in his diary, he's like, I think I should become a ger. I think I should become Jewish, like the Yid Kodesh, every day he was a Yid, like he was it's like just that day he became a Yid, and like to think what it means. There's a story, the Kalver Rebbe Shlita, he tells about the Baal Shem Tov, he says from Ramat Slonimer, it said from Baruch Mezbitzer, that, the Baal Shem Tov, he was offering advice to a Paritz, and he said, he told the Paritz, he's like, you gotta calm down, you can't, if you want to be healed from whatever sickness, you can't be involved in so many indulgences and things, and so many lusts, and he said, but I can't overcome it. And he said, how do you do it? And Baal Shem Tov said, well, I'm old already, so I've already, cooled down. So then Baruch Mezbitzer said, why didn't you tell him I'm a Yid? And the Yid doesn't, Yid is able to be Meskaber. A Jew can overcome these temptations. And he says, it's very hard to explain to a guy what's a Yid. So the Baruch Measurements has said today it's hard to even explain to a Yid what's a Yid. And because most Yidden don't know what it means to be a Yid. Most Yidden, are not excited to be Jewish. They don't see it. They're jealous of other people. It's like Moshe Weinberger. He says there was a story by him. There was a kid who found out that he wasn't really Jewish, and they made him a ger. He was frum and everything. And he said, that the night before the gerus, he was like, I got to stay in your house. I have to be in the rabbi's house. I don't want to be tempted. I don't know what I could do during this time, so I just want to stay here. He could do whatever he wants. What would you do if you found out you weren't Jewish? Would you throw away the whole thing? Would you become a ger? If you're Jewish, if you're frum, think about it. It's a scary thought. It's a scary thought to try to think. What would you do if you found out you weren't really Jewish? Would you become a ger, or wouldn't you? And I think most of the people who fight against Asher Meza, their answer is no. They wouldn't become a ger. What do we need this for? Because otherwise, why? Either that, or they're racist, and they're like, oh, it's good enough for me, but it's not good enough for you. It's one or the other. And the issue of Kabbalah. So Rabbi Asher, he speaks out against the Zohar, against Kabbalah. Personally, I believe the Zohar to be sourced in Tanaic roots. But it's not exactly in the original form. It's changed through the years. And its roots come from, I think, have some shaykhs or shibur yochai, whether it's in a physical way or in a spiritual way, a channeled way, one or the other. There is a kesher to the Sefer as Zohar Kodesh and to shibur yochai. That being said, there are many misinterpretations of the Zohar, of Kabbalistic texts, and so forth. For the most part, most of the things that Asher has a problem with Kabbalah have nothing to do with Kabbalah. They only have to do with the, not Chabad, with the 770 Chabad, not with the Malachim or, the Ehrlich old-time Chabad, but with the 770 Chabad. Which, I don't forgive the 770 Chabad from being Hasidim like everyone else. I don't mean they have to punch Streimelech and go pay us. That's not what I mean. I don't care how they dress. They can dress modern. They can speak English. Well, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. They can daven Tilas Hashem and have, all of their Bezundra Minhagim. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not what I'm upset about. But they cannot go and insult Rav Aaron Kotler and the Chazon Ish and the Chavetz Chaim and Rav Shach and all the Gedolim, even Gedolim who were supportive of Chabad, who were supportive of the Lubavitch Rebbe, Rabbi Victor Miller. They're not Goris anybody but the Lubavitch Rebbe. And it's ridiculous. It's not Yiddishkeit. The Satmar don't do that. The Litvisha don't do that. The Yekas don't do that. Only Chabad. And Square also, to a certain extent, also. They're like, oh, we don't learn this, we don't learn that. But not as extreme as Chabad. But also the same thing. Satmarov was very upset at the Square Rebbe. Oh, he doesn't learn the Ketzos, he doesn't learn this, doesn't learn that, doesn't learn Ramchal. Well, we can still respect the Squarers because they're part of Klal Yisrael. But the Chabad, it's not that we have a problem with them. They have a problem with everybody else. They remove themselves from the Klal Yisrael with their attitude and their arrogance and so forth. We'd love to be Makar of them. We'd love to be Makar of them. And be Makar Arf, meaning you be a proud Lubavitcher Chassid, but don't be pushing it on everybody. But the thing is, most of the things that Asher has a problem with are coming from Chabad, and don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Most of these things come from an ignorance of even what the Zohar Kodesh says, and what the Ariya Kodesh says. The whole idea of the Jewish soul that Chabad makes a very big deal out of is, and people will often say, even people who study the issue, they'll say, the Kabbalists accept the doctrine of the Jewish soul and the rationalists don't. It's not true. The Kabbalist concept of the Jewish soul is something you earn, and that anyone can earn. It's something that's acquired during prayer. It's something that's acquired through devotion, through spirituality. It's not just poof, you're born with a Jewish soul. Yitzchak de Ma'ako was a Talmud Ramban, and he said there are many people who are born Jewish who do not have a Jewish neshama, and there are many people who are not born Jewish who do have a Jewish neshama. Then when people hear that, they forget about the first part, that the Yid doesn't have a Yiddish neshama. It doesn't mean he can't attain it, but he has to work on it. That's meaning he has the potential to earn a Yiddish neshama. But it's not a Yerusha the way, meaning Al Pi Kabbalah. The Kabbalim say this, that it's not a Yerusha. It's something you have to earn through Torah, through mitzvahs, through devotion, through being religious. And even being religious, sometimes you're going to miss the mark. Meaning you could be ultra orthodox and you're missing the mark. And you don't have the soul. But most of the ultra orthodox do have the soul. 99% are hearts and neshamas. But a lot of them are distant from the neshama. A lot of them are not connected to their neshama. And it's true. That's the truth. I would say someone who, if they were faced with a question, am I, do I have to, I would have to become a ger and not meaning I have to learn for 3 years, just have to go jump in the mikveh with a bezdin, or else I'm not really Eid. And I thought I was Eid my whole life, and I've been from my whole life, and I find out I have to go jump in the mikveh. Would you do it? Wouldn't you do it? I think all those people who say no don't have a Yiddish neshama, but they could earn it. They could have it. The neshama is there somewhere, just not inside of them. It exists somewhere. And the thing is, so many of my good friends and fine people who oppose Rabbi Meza, I believe most of them are good and they mean well, but if they would just give him a chance, talk to him, go on his show. He's gone away more and more from his more controversial ideas, and now he's just having conversations. It's like a talk show. It's very nice what he has, and it's interesting, and people like it, people enjoy it. Go talk to him or just ignore him. Why be so obsessed? I mean, are people obsessed with Michael Lerner? I don't hear these same people, going, oh, we gotta get rid of Michael Lerner. Oh, we gotta get rid of Rabbi Potasnik or something. I don't know. These are also Orthodox rabbis. I mean, officially, that's how Michael Lerner considers himself to be a musmach in the Orthodox tradition. So he's much more dangerous than Asher Meza. But nobody's fighting, and I don't care to fight him either. Let him be spiritual progressive. Fine. All right, I gotta go. It's I'm at the mikveh already. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment, and have a good Shabbos.